So today we really want to talk about the teacher's guide. Um, Remember, we had a discussion last Saturday, and we talked about how we can come up with relevant and appropriate content, which will be in the learner's book on the learner's content. So because you need to develop a set of a book, a set meaning that you have the learner's book and the teacher's guide. Sometimes this is referred to as user guide, but because we are referring to a digital ebook, then this will also be a teacher's guide, abbreviated as a TG. So what are the key elements that you need to focus on when you get there? Remember, this will come after you are done with the learner's book. And then now you consider doing the teacher's guide because they are supposed to be submitted as a set for evaluation. So one of the things that you need to put in focus is about the accuracy and correctness of information. This is again coming, which is an item we discussed in the previous session. And what this means is about being factual. No point in that content development do you give a lie. So what you write, what you come up with as a guides, statements, all of them need to be factual. In the sense that factual means that true information which is verified and it is true. So if there are factual errors, then you know what that book or that content may not be able to move forward. So we also talked of currency of information, and currency means what is at the moment being considered as useful. So that content should have no dated information. And I gave an example here that for us in Kenya, we are talking of the counties at this point. But you realize that a developer would perhaps talk of districts, which used to be there, yes, but because of the changes in that have taken place over time, we are now considering counties and sub-counties. So if you have a content or you try to develop content and you still refer to the dated information, then you are missing the point. The methodology and pedagogical issues, we have a number of items to put into consideration. Now, the material must have instructions that, one, set out practical activities for facilitating each substrate. Remember here, you need to really take it, you need to actually even underline the term instructions because the teacher has to be guided. So is that content, is that material that you are putting in the teacher's guide, does it have clear instruction that set out practical activities for facilitating each substrate? So this is something you need to tease it out. What are these practical activities that you can think of coming up with? I mean, bringing them on board related to your thematic area, related to the learning area you are developing content to. Instructions should set out approaches to nurturing values and positive attitudes. Again here, our main reference point is the curriculum design. The curriculum design has prescribed a number of the values. And so for you as a developer, then you need to anchor the values in a way that you provide instruction to the teacher on how those values are going to be acquired. So that instruction should be clear and should be relevant to the curriculum design. So this means any point you are having to maybe think of coming up with an instruction which is nurturing, is meant to nurture the values and also put in place the positive value, then you should get back to the curriculum design and see which is this value that is discussed, that is prescribed for this substrand or this uh, for this strand. So you are not just picking all the values at random basis, but you are just actually being guided by the values which are redirected or which are prescribed in the curriculum design. And the same goes to setting out approaches to integrating of PCI. The instructions will also be clear. Guiding the teacher in setting out the approaches to integrating of PCI. Remember, we talked of PCI the other day, and we are looking at PCI. We picked at, let's say, environmental educations of environmental sustainability, or even just think about a PCI which talks about um, health issues, for example. How is it that the instruction will guide the teacher that that PCI is coming out, that PCI is even directed that the teacher, when he or she is redirecting the students in that learning activity, then the PCI is also embedded in that activity. That also moves down to setting instructions, setting out instructions which are learner centered, and the instructions should be clear once again. And the instructions should be learner centered, but more of inquiry based learning. And in this case, the instructions we are talking of are inquiry based learning in the sense that the instructions you put which will guide the teacher should have a connection of the actually the classroom learning and the real um, world happening. So there should be a good connection. What you do in class should be smoothly aligned to what is happening in the real world situation. And so that's what we mean by inquiry based learning. So you put a statement which will actually guide the teacher to help the students do what we call inquiry based learning. And in so doing, then those core competencies are basically coming out within a period of time. Same to skills. Material must have instructions that set out approaches to develop the skills. Remember, the skills are within the specific learning outcomes in the curriculum design. So as you tease out and get the skill, if the skill, for example, is preparing a budget, that is a skill in business studies. So what are the instructions that will guide the teacher to help the students prepare the budget? That is what we are talking about. The learning activities as well set out approaches to presenting the various types of activities, and activities here could be the ones that they are uh, the ones that you have already developed in the learner's book. But when you go to the teacher's guide, now you think of how are you guiding the teacher to help the student perform the various activities described in the learner's book. Not forgetting the element of parental empowerment and engagement. What are the instructions that you set out to help the teacher guide the students? Help the teacher help the students. Bring out the element of parental empowerment and engagement. And these two terms need to be understood. Engagement and empowerment. I think you don't have to, you can even think about very small activity of just in giving an example here. that if I have discovered, for example, as a teacher, that one of the students in the class is good in football. Okay, this student A is good in football. Now I want to involve the parent so that this talent is nurtured both by the teacher and the parent as well. So I may call the parent and tell the parent that, you know what, this student is good in football. He's a top scorer. He's a good midfielder. He's a good goalkeeper. So you as the parent, now that maybe we are going for a long holiday break, how do you help this learner so that now there's no disconnect between what he does best in school and what he or she will do when out of school? So in that discussion, I would maybe suggest that maybe the parent can buy a ball, okay? Maybe the parent can maybe create a membership to this learner to a football club around. That is about empowerment. If this parent is about to see the value, see the talent in this learner or the child, and goes ahead to support by say buying a ball, then it means the parent is empowered. He understands that he has a chance in developing the talent of the child. Engagement now would maybe come when now we call the parents in a school setup perhaps and say now it's material making day. We've discovered our children are doing well in football, but we don't have balls. So we can't even buy balls. So we call the parents maybe in a material making day and we make balls for the children. The teacher discussion. That could mean trying to put all the stakeholders in the same pond. So the material developed for the teacher's guide should also set out approaches to community service learning. There should be clear instructions. What are the learners expected to be doing through the guidance of the teacher? But the instruction in the TG should be clear that when I read this instruction, I'm able to figure out that I need to do 1, 2, 3 to help my students do what we call community service learning. So as we think about that, we are talking about inclusivity, and this is a global discussion. You cannot just have a class with just very perfect learners. And by the way, all the learners are different. So in that idea in mind, then we have to think about suggestions on teaching learners with special needs. As you are developing the content for the teacher's guide, then you need to also think of what are the useful suggestions that will bring into board so that now even those learners having difficulties to learn, learners who have physical impairment, learners who have visual impairment, learners who are troubled with hearing impairment, among others, also benefit in the learning activity. So it should be clear. So I could come up with a statement in the learner's teacher's book or the teacher's content, and maybe this statement would say, for for visually impaired, those who are struggling to see, allow them to sit close to the whiteboard, close to the chalkboard. That could be just a clear statement that you're helping the teacher, because now when I read that statement, then I'm guided. I am given some hint that I need to treat these learners and I need to take them in front of my class so that they are able to at least see or engage to the content or to the discussion. Point number 3 is suggestion for teaching and learning resources. For each and every substrand, for each and every section, you need to think of what are the useful teaching and learning resources. You need to suggest, will you use manila papers? Will you use a smartphone? Will you use a resource person? So you need to suggest to the teacher who is also guiding the students that when I get to this activity, then I need to have charts. I need to have models. I need to have audios. So I will prepare in advance because you have suggested for me. And this does not mean that all what you suggest is what's supposed to be used. Sometimes because of the environment, you could even, the teacher is given an opportunity to even be creative and come up with resources which are relevant, local available, and they can be utilized and maybe reused at that at that school. So the TG must provide useful, relevant, appropriate, and practical suggestions for teaching and learning resources. So it's something that you need to think about it. And what are the resources? List them. Are they relevant? Are they appropriate? Are they? Are they local available? Because CBC is all about making use of the local available resources. You don't have to think of buying everything. So you also need to go out of your mind and think of what is it that can be obtained locally without cost or minimal cost. Now, when it comes to assessment, the material that you develop needs to provide relevant and useful suggestion on appropriate tools for assessment at every substrand. But remember, we are talking of CBC, the competence-based education, the competence-based curriculum, and there are specific tools that can be used for assessment for this curriculum. And some of these tools include portfolios, observation schedules, anecdotal records, checklists. Those you suggest should be meaningful and should be relevant. So you must think of what is it that will make meaning out of the assessment I want to impose, I want to bring out in this activity. And how do I measure understanding? How do I even check the competence of the skills learned over time? So like observation schedules will be meaningful if the activity is hands-on, for example. When their activity is maybe washing hands, and then you have an observation schedule, of course you observe them doing and then put the comments. So they should be relevant and should be appropriate. Provide useful suggestion at the substance level on how to develop appropriate competence-based assessment. Now, besides having the tools, you also need to guide the teacher to come up with appropriate competence-based assessment. Those assessments which we call authentic assessment. Are you guiding the teacher to develop one? There should be statements that when I read as the teacher without the presence of the author, then I'm able to even design a basic competence-based assessment that I can use for my student. And that goes beyond in the provision of useful suggestion on the approaches to handling assessment task. So assessment task, this could be the learning activities. This could be the learning experiences. How are you guiding the teacher to even take the projects you have put in the learner's book? When the activity in the learner's book says come up with a kitchen garden, that's a project. So are you guiding the teacher to even know where to start? Maybe you guide the teacher to put the students in groups, okay, groups of 4 to be specific, or that will again depend. Then maybe choosing group leaders, assigning roles. So those instructions should be clear so that the teacher is guided and gets to understand what he or she is supposed to do to support the student to learn. So before we proceed, I wish to get some reactions on what we have just discussed. If there are questions, any concern, you could put in the chat. You could also just raise up the hand and ask if there are any concerns. And for those who have started developing the content, we had advised earlier that you could even get those books that were approved for, let's say, grade 8 or 7 for your thematic area, maybe the learner's book. And this time round, you could also grab the TG and just try to relate. See what we are discussing here is even getting its way in some of those books we are referring to, so that when now you get into the point of developing the TG, you actually have some in understanding of what is expected of you. Any question up to that far? In response to suggested assessments, suggested competence-based assessments, I want us to think on how we can come up with these instructions. How do we come up with these suggested assessment tools and the suggested assessment suggested assessment approaches? If you're doing maths, if you're doing business studies, if you're doing Kiswahili, if you're doing any other thematic area or learning area, you could think of, just tease out, pick one skill, think of a learning activity, and then where the heart of a content developer. This time round, you are doing the teacher's guide. So think of what assessment am I going to suggest to the teacher to take care of a specific activity which is in the learner's book. So for example, if I have I have an activity in the learner's book, and the activity is developing a kitchen garden. The activity is in groups, learners develop a kitchen garden. Now, I want to think of an assessment approach that will help me, the teacher, to assess these students as they come up with a kitchen garden. So what do you think would be the assessment tool in the first place? And what do you think will be the assessment approach? The assessment approach here, the assessment method. We have methods and tools. So in that example, what do you think is the assessment tool? It can be one, it can be two, there can be several tools. What do you think is the assessment method? Or what do you think are the assessment methods? Out of that example, I want to see people reacting here. Just thank you. You saying you can use a checklist as the assessment tool. Yeah, this is good. Any other tool? I want to put suggestions on the assessment tool for that just simple activity. The assessment tool and the assessment method. Observation schedule. Thank you, Collins. And even questionnaire, Mary Minor. Yes, questionnaire can be used. Now, what are some of the assessment methods now? Remember, the activity is coming up with a kitchen garden. What you have mentioned, Collins, Mary, those are tools. What are the methods? The assessment method that you would suggest as you develop the teacher's guide, so that any other teacher using your content gets guided. That
you can use observation.
All right, thank you. Observation, Noel. Yeah, thank you for adding your voice here. Written test, Collins. Yeah, very true. Is he writing? Out of questions? Now, think of a portfolio in this case. Do you think a portfolio is going to be a tool or a method? If you decide to use a portfolio in your own consumption, do you think portfolio is going to be a method or a tool? Or it can be in both? What do you think? Yes, just says can be either. Yeah, depends on how you utilize it. Colin says it's a method. Yeah. Yes, portfolio can be a tool, it can be a method. Think about projects. In this case, Would you think, do you think a project will be a method or a tool? Remember, we are developing a kitchen garden. Okay, thank you so much for engaging. Now, we need to move to the next item. And here, we are talking about answers to exercises, answers to questions or the activities. The learner's book has a lot of activities because we said earlier that CBC is more of the activities. So even if you think of developing content, then you should think of having varieties in terms of the activities and the exercises that will make the learner engage so that he or she acquires the skills, acquires the competencies, and even the values. Now, as we come to the teacher's guide, we are looking at these exercises in different ways that we have to provide answers to those activities that require answers. Some activities would perhaps be just open-ended questions or activities which do not need to have precise answers. But for those that need specific answers, then the TG must capture that. So all the answers to the exercises and activities must be correct when they are given in the TG. So if you are developing content for maths and on page 10 of the learner's book, there's an exercise, maybe 3 questions, and those questions need to have answers so that the teacher can really quickly check the answers and even maybe mark the activity in the learner's book or an activity in the learner's book whose answer is not known. So if it's a math question, then you have to do it and confirm that the answer is 40, for example, and that answer must be provided so that the teacher is well guided. But again, answers, exercises, not all exercises need to have answers. About the clarity and presentation of the text, how you present the text, we have been talking about the organization, the writing needs to be clear and easy to use. Don't mix up, although this is the TG, don't mix up the font size, the font type, don't mix up, don't bring some irrationality in terms of the bolding of some text or maybe the coloring of some text. If the headings are bolded in a certain way, then that should cut across. So basically what we are trying to say here is network, the text needs to be presented in a clear way and the reader can read, get to understand what you, the developer, means in each and every point. Point number 9 is cross-referencing. What does this mean? It means that if you're talking of a page in the learner's book. Slide. This time our content is digital content. So maybe it's going to be like, are you referring to a slide? Are you referring to a page? Or are you referring to an illustration? So anytime you want to refer to any item to the learner's book, then you must quote the exact page, you must quote the exact number, or you must quote the exact illustration. It is going to be bad when you say, answer B as provided in activity 4, page 10 of the learner's book. So when I go to page 4 of the learner's book, I don't see the answer you are referring me to. So that now brings the conflict. When you say an illustration in page 30, and that illustration is on page 35. So there's going to be, again, an issue of cross-referencing. So you must say the illustration on page 30, and when I flip the book, the learner's book that is, and I go to page 30, then I see that illustration you are referring to. Otherwise, you will have your content will be downscored. Remember, this is the criteria. It's part of the standards. What is required of you for this content to be approved by the approving body? So for us to be thorough and also be in a way that our content will have the higher possibility of being approved, then we need to take all these instructions or what we are saying and put it into consideration. Now, about layout, this was in the learner's book initially, and it's also again here. Layout is about the page arrangement, the pagination. You could talk about the margins for each page. What we are trying to emphasize is that this layout should enhance readability and ease of reference. The bottom line is the layout should be in a way that the teacher is able to read the text, is able to interpret what you mean without much difficulties. So moving down here, we are now referring to the font size, the font types, the boldness need to be rational across the text. So if you have adopt a style of, say, highlighting the subtopics, highlighting the substrands, maybe using a red ink or using a black ink, then that should be cutting across. It should be cutting across for all the pages. Avoid the situation where you have pages 1 to 5, the headings are of different font size, they are of different color. Then from page 20 to page, say, 30, we have also headings in different color. There's no consistency issue with the layout, and that's not be good enough for your content. Our content is digital. We are working on developing a digital content, and at one point we shall have audios, okay, depending on your learning area. At one point, we'll maybe have like even videos, the multimedia elements, animations. Now, you need to ask yourself, are those audio appropriate in terms of the speech and even the accent? Do you bring in an audio which is more of American accent addressing do you bring an audio which is very fast and even this the learner cannot even understand what actually is being said here? So there's need for you to check the speed in terms of being appropriate to the level. In this case, we are looking at the learner who is a grade 8 learner. It should be not slow and not too fast. Clarity of sound should be clear. Don't record an audio and you have a lot of background noise. That will not work well here. Transcription, if there's an audio, there's a video, then there are some wordings that are going along with the voice. Those should also be clear and legible, and they should correspond to the recorded content. Think of the links and hyperlinks. Sometimes you need to redirect the learner or the teacher. This time you are talking of the teaching. Maybe you put a link, and of course, these links must be, you must have checked the links, and the links should also contain appropriate, decent content, which is relevant. So those links should be functional and should not expose the learners to harmful sites. So it's upon you now, if you have to put a link, maybe additional resources that the teacher can read, then those links should be of appropriate content and more so content that will not expose the learner to harmful sites. We need also to be very careful here. Sometimes we pick links from YouTube to videos done by others. But after some time, the owner of that video decides to pull the video down. I mean, remove it from, just remove it from the internet or from the World Wide Web. So at one point now, when you try to maybe click the link, it doesn't take you where it's actually need to take you to. So that again, as a developer, we need to be very careful about the links, besides having links which contain appropriate, functional, relevant content. So I don't know if there are questions up to that far. We need to see if there are any concerns. We can pick some questions or put some suggestions. Remember, we are wearing the hat of a developer, content developer, an author, so to speak. So we need to be very critical and think in a creative way so that we present our content in a special way, different from what others have been doing. Rhoda, I can see a question here for English and literature. How do we go about creating content for reading in the case of comprehension? Am I expected to create personal stories for the comprehension? All right. Before I answer that question, anybody from the English department or anyone who has handled English, what do you think?
Yes, Joel, come up again.
There's a question put across here by Rhoda.
Yes.
She's asking, as for English and literature,
Yes.
how do we go about creating content for reading? So in this case, she's referring to reading like comprehension, where the learner will read and then now answer questions.
They come up with their own
So
stories.
so she's asking, am I expected to create personal stories for the comprehension?
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is
Yes.
yes. So that's why I was talking of being creative, because that story should also be fun, so that even as the learner reads, it feels like he's really getting to see what you mean. But again, you need also to factor in the theme. What are you discussing about as prescribed by the curriculum design? Is it about technology? The theme in focus. Is it about culture? Is it about is it about education? So the theme should now be what you are focusing to achieve. So even though you are coming up with your own story, the vocabularies there within the story should actually be in line with what you intend to achieve as directed by the curriculum design and specifically for that
Excuse me,
theme.
Joel.
Yes.
Okay, creating stories will also be guided by the learning experiences outlined in the curriculum design.
Yes.
Yeah, so if at all it's a story and there are some new words the learners are supposed to learn, you'll find that such kind of vocabularies are outlined in the learning experiences. So it is upon the teacher to be creative to incorporate such kind of vocabularies in the story he or she is creating for that.
Yeah.
And also, they are supposed to be guided by the learning outcomes that are given. It is the learning outcomes that will enable the teacher to come up with a story that will be focusing in achieving the learning outcomes prescribed in the curriculum design.
Very true. And thank you so much, Noel. That is very well guided. And so it means that the curriculum design is our main reference book. Develop a story, yes, but look at what is the learning outcome. What are the vocabularies in place? What are the learning experiences that you need to uh, bring out of that activity? Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. There's a question here from Collins. Will the consultants engage developers of video clips or audios? I actually don't. Collins, could you unmute and put this question clear? I can't get it well from the text.
Hello, Joel.
Yes, Collins.
Yes, I thank you for the how we are.
Yes.
Mine is just a concern. Like one, sorry to take you back, was the issue of when we are developing the learners' books.
Yeah.
there are certain kind of diagrams that we may be able to describe
Sure.
or illustrations that we may be handicapped to draw using the computer. So maybe at that point, will we just kind of indicate or give an instruction somewhere on maybe a window that an artist to draw this? Because again, we find that in this development, I could come up with the content, but again, artists will have a fine touch
Sure.
on issues to do with illustrations and diagrams.
Yeah.
That with regards to learner's book. Now on the teacher's guide,
Yes.
I could have a script for a video, a script that is for video or audio, because I know I want to believe maybe a video can be accompanied by an audio. So if I have a
Yes.
script, so that for the clarity of the video,
Yeah.
will we engage a professional, or we just be, if there's a video I want to capture maybe for a certain practical activity, probably I wanted to describe something or show the stages of doing a practical activity. Well, as I do the practical activity, I can capture the video clips by my own, then I connect it to form a video that will run for 5 minutes. Or will there be professionals working on our video clips for clarity and
Okay.
professionalism?
Okay. Thanks, Collins. You've raised a very important item here, which I also asked. And at that time, we had the bearer of the vision, Mr. Pius. So the advice was, at one point, the developer will learn the skills. If so, you wish to learn the skill of being an illustrator, you can learn. And so develop the illustrations for your content. The other feedback I got was, yes, you can engage a professional to do the illustration. But again, not very clear from where I sit. Maybe my colleagues would chip in, because I understand that at one point, those illustrations must be of very high quality, some of which you, the content developer, may not able to develop or bring them into perspective. So we are yet to get some guidance from Mr. Pius and see how best we can go about that. But what I know, and this is from Mr. Pius, he said that you can also learn a skill. He's going to uh, provide us with the tools, and you can learn the skill so that you develop illustrations. You can design your own illustration and attach them to wherever you want to attach them to, so that now your content becomes 100% yours. On the side of the teacher's
Excuse
guide,
me,
and
Joel.
Sorry,
yes,
Joel. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm saying, Joel, are you getting me?
yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm saying that there are specialists working on illustrations. Yeah, because I think for the approval of those books, the illustrations, there's a way that there are specialists who are supposed to look at the illustrations and the way they are done. So as much as we are going to learn different tools on making those kind of illustrations, we must get somebody who is also having a knowledge on how to present such kind of illustrations in the learner's book.
Very, very well guided. So in this case, then, Collins, maybe at one point you want to have an illustration, you can put a text in brackets and say, draw an illustration of people washing hands. So the illustrator actually know that now here I need to have people washing hands. So that illustration will come at that point.
Sorry, Joel.
Yes.
Okay, the reason I asked that,
Yes.
because for the illustrations, okay, maybe on my side, yes, we'll be learning as it has been indicated, which is thumbs up.
Yes.
But the illustrations that we will be prescribing, assuming I want a diagram, will be I've seen a diagram on the internet, but still I may not know the royalty issues. This
Sure.
royalty free photos or diagrams or something like that. I could just capture that to just show or maybe give guidance on the artist on what is supposed to be drawn. Then there, below that or before that, I have some kind of note that artist to draw. For example, I was just having maybe a scientist kind of studying an insect or an electron microscope. But then there are some areas I could give some sample photos that will
Yeah.
guide the
Sure.
artist what is to be drawn. Then in
Sure.
the end, the illustrations or the diagrams that I'll be having are maybe like more or less what are in the internet, but not the actual ones that I've taken from the internet. They are authentic. That means they are ours. And then they also have a professional touch. My
Sure.
experience, there was some time we were going, sorry to digress, for
Yeah.
drama to kind of do our own
Yeah.
painting of
Sure.
a ship, because that is what was our theme,
Sure.
the backdrop. Only to realize that when we were hanging, the ship was ilikuwa inazama instead of floating, sailing. So those are the kind of things that we must be very keen about, because the content we
Sure.
are developing will go into some other hands. So as we learn
Sure.
along, but let
Yeah.
us do as Noel has said, we have professionals that will have a professional touch in our illustrations and diagrams.
Very true. Very true. And the issue of plagiarism also comes in place.
Yes, yes.
It's not all. It's not all the stuff we see, or the images, the illustration we see in the internet can be used. There are other sources which are free sources to use, but then there are others which with the owner of that. So basically, I think because we shall have a professional illustrator, I believe this will be for each learning area, or one who knows what is supposed to be done. Then it's always good, even if you take a photo, because not all the illustrations or the animations need to be drawn or designed. It could be just a real photo of an item. Just take it yourself, then upload it to the page. So that again has to be, there is issue of proportionality, those color match and all that. So again, that professional illustrator can give us direction so that we have come up with the best out of the best. Yeah, thank you, Collins, for raising that. Any other question? Yeah, about do we need to get the consent of video animation owners before using them in our books? I think yes. If you do that, then of course you will be on the right path. You will be on the right. You can't just, academic writing, and we need to be ethical. You can't just pick someone's work and use it and then claim that it is yours. That cannot happen. You can imagine even the work you're trying to do, the content you're developing, and then somebody gets it. I mean, comes across your content, and then even before it is out there, somebody publishes or even photocopies and uses that content. So, those are copyright issues, and it's not acceptable at all. So I think, Naila, maybe moving forward, you could even think plan to bring on board one or two illustrators so that we can have them in this meeting. We can also hear their point of story, as we develop the content, so we need to be guided fully and get to know what exactly what are they expecting of us in relation to illustrations and animation. All right, so any other concern? All right, so I think we have come to the end. I want to really appreciate your level of engagement and the far we have gone. So far, we have looked at the criteria for learner's book, how we need to develop the content for the learner's book, as well as the teacher's guide. And so it's upon us to tease it out. Remember, writing a book is not an easy task. We need to call a spade a spade. It's actually, it requires a lot of creativity, deep thinking, and research. But I know if you have the to do, ability to do mentality, then you can get to where you want. So I want to thank everyone in a special way as I check the meeting back to Noel. You can still engage in WhatsApp. If there are any questions and concerns, don't hesitate to share so that we move as a team. Yeah, thank you so much. Naila, if anything else?
We still have time. We're supposed to finish at 7. Yes?
Yes.
I'm saying that we still have time. We still have around 20 minutes to go.
Yeah, sure.
The presentation was okay. I think we should give the developers time for their reaction. It can just be a feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can give them time to give feedback on the presentation and maybe for some clarity where they think that they need some clarification. Kindly
Sure.
conduct that. Okay.
I remember last time we were looking at, there's a question that came here, and somebody was asking, how do you capture, was it values or PCI? I'm not, can't remember very well.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe can you talk about the PCI? How do you integrate PCI in the learner's book? If you have
Okay.
anything to, yeah.
When you can do it just through the activities that are given in the book. For example, every strand has prescribed PCIs. So you'll find that you are given 2 or even 3. For example, let me talk about citizenship. Not citizenship. Let me talk about animal welfare as a PCI.
Yes.
So animal welfare as a PCI, you'll just see in the activities given, maybe learners given an activity on how to take care of, that one is just on for simple understanding, to take care of the animals that they will be drawn maybe in the picture, feeding them. So PCIs will come out clearly through the activities that are given in the learner's book. Same to values. When you want to talk about values like unity, you'll find activities where learners are doing them in groups. So the moment that learners can pair and group themselves, there is that essence of unity. So we achieve the values and the PCS just through the activities that are given in the learner's book, plus the instructions given in the learner's book. I don't know whether you've been answered.
Yeah. Thank you, Noel. I also want to give an example here when we are talking about financial literacy as a PCI, and then now an activity in the learner's book is directing the learners to do a budget. Okay, when the learners may be instructed to come up with a budget, then at that point of discussion, the element of financial literacy will come in. So that PCI is embedded in that activity. But again, that PCI should be one of the PCI which is prescribed in the curriculum design. So as they do the budgeting, there are those skills like getting to know what are the income or the expenditure, cost of items, how do you even save. That discussion around now will create an awareness in terms of financial literacy. So by the students doing that activity, then already that PCI, financial literacy, is brought into existence. Same to the values, as Naila has put it. Maybe we need to get some understanding from your learning area. How do you integrate PCIs? Those who have tried it. Collins, you can share. Just share your experience.
Oh, thank you, Joel. Just like I think it was Fred, somebody who asked it last time. Was it? Okay.
Yes.
What we said last time is that because somebody will think of maybe writing somewhere in the learner's book that
Yeah.
this is
Sure.
maybe developing this particular PCI or mainstreaming this particular PCI. So we
Yes.
said that the activities that we develop should be able to mainstream that PCI, and ensure that at the end, it also develops the core competency and promotes the various unity that is, there are suggested PCI's core competencies, unity per each and every substrand. So the activities that we're developing are the ones that are supposed to ensure that we mainstream them in the activities. Then the teacher's guide will now guide the teacher that at this particular stage, there is this competence that is being developed. Like, it gives a step-by-step kind of guidance on how a teacher is supposed to deliver the content. Let's say to undertake a given activity, guide the learners to undertake a given activity. So in that section, that is where you now say, at this stage, then at this stage of this particular activity, this step, in the course of the learning, the lesson, the learner is able to develop this kind of core competency. And then it will also be able to give guidance on how the PCIs are mainstreamed, how the values are being promoted.
Very true. Very true. So that is what we need to be doing. And as we said, the curriculum design is our key reference, our book. We should always be checking which PCIs are being discussed for that substrate, so that we don't talk of financial literacy in substrand 1 when actually in the curriculum design it's talking about disaster and risk management. So that would mean now you are uh, coming up with activities to capture PCI, but not the ones prescribed. Remember, there's a reason why those prescribed PCIs were put in those specific areas. Yeah, thank you so much, Collins. Any other experience from how
Sorry,
you have been?
coming up again.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was just looking at the work. I've actually just been working on substrand 1 on my thematic area, that is biology.
Yes.
Now, if you look at substrand 1, for example,
Yeah.
it is on introduction to biology, where if you look at the looking through the suggested learning outcomes, there is explaining the application of biology in everyday life, relate fields of study in biology to career opportunities.
Yeah.
Then one of the SLE, that is suggested learning experience,
Yeah.
is discuss the factors that influence career choices. If you look at the values, if I just take, for example, the values there,
Yes.
because there is the value of respect, and it says that respect, the learners appreciate diverse opinions during discussion on the factors that influence career choices. So if I now say, like in my activity here, I've said,
Yeah.
the learners, like for example, I wanted to just take on that.
Yeah.
One of the activities here, just I want to just to discuss meaning. Sorry, there's something I wanted to speak which I'm not here. To discuss factors that influence career choices
Yeah.
related to biology.
Sure.
So that is the activity. I said now the first case share that is what to do. Maybe the what we are after what they need to be able to discuss that. So number one, I'm saying share with your peers the career opportunities related to biology that you can
Yeah,
choose
sure.
and the options. So as they share with peers, we will all appreciate that we may not go, we may not be able to have a liking for the same career. I may have my reasons, somebody may have the other person's reasons. So as I listen to you, assuming you are the one listening to me, maybe sharing with you the factors that I may consider to choose a certain career, you will be developing respect because you will accept my opinion. I will also
Sure.
accept yours. Yes. And then from there, you see, they are going to now search for that is activity number one. If you go to maybe activity number two, you're saying they now discuss the factors that influence career choices. And I've said you may find more information from the relevant textbooks, digital devices connected to the internet, or a resource person with career related to biology. So as they're doing that, of course, there is that value where we are saying responsibility. The learner search for information on fields of study in biology from safe internet sites. And they have also said they use devices connected to the internet to search for connected safe internet sites. So you're saying if you engage them in those activities, then in the end you are mainstreaming the core competency, like if you're talking about developing even the career wheel, as
Sure.
they are designing the wheel, creating one, cutting out papers, they are developing the core competency of imagination and creativity. So now
Very
in the
true.
teacher's guide, I'll say at this particular step, when the students are doing this, then they are able to develop the competency of imagination and creativity. And then as they're discussing them, that is now guiding the teacher on the teacher's guide. As they're discussing the factors that they consider, then they're promoting respect and something like that.
Wow. I think that is very elaborate, Collins. Thanks for sharing, and that is your real work now. Yeah, thank you a lot. The rest of us, we could take a tip from Collins and get it right, because mainstreaming is what we mean here for the core competencies, the values, PCI. So basically, as you develop the content, then remember you are mainstreaming. Those the learning activities should bring out the intended values, the intended PCIs, the intended core competencies. Yeah, all of them. Thanks a lot.